Here we are at mo5do314.ssb. There's not nearly as much to go over here, since a lot of it is repeat material, but if you may recall, this script actually takes place inside Wigglytuff's guild, despite being a part of the Waterfall Cave intro event. How is this possible? Well, it starts with backset ground. Remember how in the last script I said I would talk about that later? Now is the time. For this script, the command is backset ground level G01P04A. Recall that backset ground determines the background during the scene. However, in unionall.ssb event MO503, it suggests that the map used is D04P11A, which was also the level within event MO503 and the backset ground as well. If I can pull that up. Yeah, there. For the previous script. So what's going on? The explanation for this is that the level in execute acting sub does not pull a background, it pulls a script scene. These are two separate things. So let's go back to the SkyTemple main page for a second. And first, I'm going to look under map backgrounds. This is where backset ground pulls from. Now, if I scroll down to G01P04A, would you look at that? That is exactly what I'm looking for. And out of curiosity, D04P11A is indeed Waterfall Cave. So this lines up with the last script, and it's probably easier to just do that. And G01P04A, yes, I did have to look it up again. That is the background that I was looking for to have the guild's bottom floor. So as for how I figured out G01P04A is what I was looking for, I just used a debugger, kind of like before, to find a script that was using this background. That is definitely a good way. There's also some patterns with the naming sequence that can help for dungeons specifically, since that's so huge, it's hard to just like brute force go through all these. Like for example, D04P11A. D04 stands for Dungeon 4, the fourth dungeon sequence in the game, which is different from just dungeon count, right? Because the game counts like boss floors as their own dungeon, essentially. But the fourth dungeon sequence in the game, you have Beach Cave, Drench Bluff, Mount Bristle, and then Waterfall Cave. So Waterfall Cave is probably D04. Then you can double click and check if you're correct, and boom, Waterfall Cave background. Now, let's look at script scenes. Since event MO503 pulls from the script scene bank, recall that the scene we're looking for is still D04P11A. There it is. And within here is MO5do314.ssa. Remember how in the debug log, it shows that you need an SSA to pull an SSB? Well, this is the SSA, an acting scene. You can see that the background here is still Waterfall Cave, but for the purposes of the script, this doesn't really mean anything. The background is just nice for helping you correctly position the elements that you add to the scene, because where you place these elements is their default set position mark. Of course, this isn't really relevant for this script since an entirely different background is being used. However, I still needed to make a change in this SSA by adding a new actor for Chatot. Without adding the actor into the SSA, there is no data to be pulled if that actor is referenced in the SSB. So let me just plop down an actor here to show how it works. That is object actor. Sector seems to refer to the layer of the map that the actor is in. I haven't really messed around with this too much. This will come up in a later script, however. So that'll be talked about again. Let's see. Talk script just lets you pull from a list of scripts to assigned to that actor. However, in a .ssa, because it is an acting scene, you can only have one SSB. I don't know why this is. It's just a rule that the game has, so can't really use talk scripts in this instance. Direction is where they're facing by default, so it helps to make sure this is correct so that you don't need to use an additional turn to direction inside the script. Of course, with the way that I went about making this scene, I had to do a turn to direction anyways, because I just copied and pasted so that they walked over to their position instead of set position. Kind is the type of actor that you're using. I haven't dug into this too much, so I'm not sure if every Pokemon in the game has their own actor, but there's a lot. And you'll see there's a lot of repeats here. Like, for example, there's like a Dialga, a Primal Dialga, there's a Wigglytuff, Silhouette, etc. There's about 5 million test ones that you just saw going through there. But yeah, there's a lot to pick from, and it's worth noting that this menu uses the Pokemon's Japanese names when you're trying to look them up. So if you if you are wondering what the heck is going on, hopefully that helps you a little bit. So now, armed with all this knowledge on backgrounds and script scenes, we return to the script view for MO5DO314. Back set ground for, oh, whoops, I'm in the wrong one. Back set ground for Wigglytuff's guild bottom floor. The camera's all set up, and all these positions, like I said before, they were just copied from another script inside GO1 PO4A, where you're talking to Chatot, that I found using the debug log. Yeah, and again, mentioned this before, but instead of having this be move position mark and turn to direction, you could just have this be set position mark and have them facing the correct way in the SSA. As for the difference between move position mark and move to position mark, I'm really not sure. It seems to function the exact same. Scrolling down a little, the other new thing here is Chatot's Dialog Box, which is different from the commands used for the player and partner. Message talk seems to be what you use for every character that's not those two. The name used in the dialog box is pulled from the data for that actor in message set phase. So NPC Parakoopa, their dialogue name in English just shows up as Chatot. And the rest of the commands here have already been discussed, already went over in the previous script, so that is it for this one. Now, onto MO5A0302.SSB. We're in the East Treasure Town background, and NPC Kinogasa, aka Breloom, was added to the script scene. At line 43, if I scroll down to that, there is an execute common. This came up in the first script as well, but I wanted to save it for here to spread out the explanations a bit. Basically, execute commons are a combination of effects, animations, and weights that are standardized throughout the game for certain actions. This one, Explanation Func Series, is for when you're talking and kind of move in place instead of pulling up a dialog box to actually say the words. Not sure what the 0 afterwards is for. Again, a reminder that since this is yellow text, you can get autocomplete suggestions to see what the other execute commons are, which is super helpful. I will repeat once again. At line 160, which is right here, there's some new dialogue tools. This CSN and CR, whatever's inside that text is turned blue. For some reason, I sometimes had troubles with this one, trying to just type it out as normal, but copying and pasting a whole CSN CR string from another script and then changing the inside has always worked. I don't know if there's any reason or basis for this. It's definitely possible that I just typed it wrong, but in case that comes up for you, just know that you're not alone, and the solution is copy and paste, as it is for most of this game seemingly. Then we have the 3 text pools that I talked about during that first script, all appearing at once: partner, hero, and team. And remember again, team has a colon afterwards. Don't forget that. There's another text color changer for Spinda's Cafe here. CSK makes it green. The CR is still afterwards. Then there is Survey Team, which shows up in-game with quotation marks. Much like good old apostrophes, these can cause problems if you do not have this little slash here before the ending quotation. The ending quotation just straight up does not show up if you don't do this. At least I'm pretty sure that is what occurred. So, yeah. Basically, quotations and apostrophes have the same issue. And that is actually it for new stuff in this script. The next script is mo5ao303.ssb. I'm going to make a breakpoint at line 379 down here because I want to talk a little about this big movement sequence right here, and I think it's easier if you see what is happening first, so let me play it. Alright, so we finally reached a breakpoint. I might cut out almost all of that because that was longer than I remember. But, anyways, first, Performer 0 and Attendant 1, which is the partner, remember, are both moving position offset by 0 on the x-axis and 40 on the y-axis. Notice that this is different from move position mark. Move position mark determines a new exact XY coordinate to move to, while move position offset is saying to move a certain amount of units from the current location. In this case, it's 40 units straight down. Then both the player and Breloom turn to direction down left and wait until the partner finishes their move position offset and turns to direction up. Then the player starts their offset and turn to direction, and then Breloom follows. Interestingly, even though there's no wait execute lives for actor player here, the player still goes through their whole move position offset before Breloom starts his. And the only explanation I can think of is that two actor move position offsets can't occur at the same time, maybe? Because otherwise they should both be moving at the same time, as they are in the same width string. And none of the width strings are broken because they're all executing, so I don't know. That's the only explanation I can think of. Again, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. Then we have these slide position offsets that make up, by the way, all of this, that all just makes up the partner's nervous shaking animation. Slide position offset, much like the previous slide command discussed earlier, is different from move because it doesn't involve the walking animation and it is quicker. However, the format for this command seems to be different from move position offset since the partner is moving in two different directions on the x-axis, but this is noted not by x equals 1 and x equals minus 1, but it's x equals 1 and x equals 32767. Again, I'm not sure how that works, but copying and pasting this into another script works fine to replicate this animation. Now, for the actual jump into the waterfall at line 531, if I can find that. Yeah. So this part utilizes multiple layers inside a script scene. let me go to mo5a0303.ssa. We're in DL4P12 now, by the way. Oh no, actually we aren't yet. That's a lie. That's a lie. 303. Yes. As you can see, this script scene is showing these 3 water splashes, but they aren't visible for most of the script. How does this work? Well, if you look in the top right, you can see that there is Sector 0 with 3 actors and 1 performer, and Sector 1 with 3 objects. Sector 0 is what we are in at the start of every script. And you can tell this since that 1 performer is the camera, right? What is the first thing that happens at the start of every script? Enable the camera. You can also double check by clicking on one of the splashes, and you can see they are indeed in Sector 1. Now returning to the script view. There's this reset output attribute that is applied to every actor. This seems weird to me since there wasn't any output attribute set in the first place that's explicitly stated in the script, but this seems to be necessary in order for where is it? Object DO4 P11A1 underscore 18 to have its own output attribute set. I'm guessing this output attribute performs the splash animation. Another interesting part of this command is that one call for this object performs the same action for all 3 objects that have the same name. Because if you go back to this, there's 1 splash for each of them, right? But only 1 command here that works for all 3. Very interesting. Then, after this, the 3 actors disappear / are removed from the scene with the destroy command. But don't forget here that you need to have this supervision acting 1 that allows you to play around with object DO4P11A 1 underscore 18 because it is in Sector 1. And that's all for new stuff in this script. Now we have finally reached the last script of event MO503, MO5A0304.SSB. Most of this segment is going to be about the very end, but first I would like to bring up a point about set animation with certain actors since it's relevant for this part. I made a breakpoint at line 56, and I'm just going to let this play out. Okay, so notice how these first 3 commands are to set animation 65 for all 3 actors. The player and partners start to stumble around, but Breloom just does his normal walk cycle. Unfortunately, not every actor has every animation assigned to them. An infamous example of this is how anyone that isn't a starter Pokemon doesn't have an overworld sleeping animation, so you're just standing in your bed as you wake up. It's the same idea here. Since Breloom does not have an animation 65, he does what is probably his default animation 0 or 1, which is his walk cycle. Just something to look out for when you're implementing new actors. Something to keep in mind. Now, for the very end. Let me scroll this way. Again, I'm going to suggest that you watch Parakoopa's video on switching game modes for more detail, because I'm going to assume that you have a baseline knowledge of how these last few lines work, and that video can provide that. So, main entered dungeon has been changed from 6, which is Waterfall Cave, to 9, which is Side Path, aka the not Craggy Coast, right? So as you might imagine, this means since the game still pulled up Waterfall Cave first floor after the script edited and it transitioned to gameplay, this must mean that Side Path was actually edited to look like Waterfall Cave. And you would be correct. I won't go too deep into the details here for the sake of video scope, but the SkyTemple beta has functionality for editing dungeon properties, and you can see change this to Waterfall Cave, and you have the different floors and whatever. Yeah, it's all pretty cool. Definitely, I think, very user-friendly. And I edited some text strings related to dungeons as well. You scroll here near the bottom, then you get dungeon names, dungeon names, dungeon names, dungeon names. I just change all of them because whatever. But this leaves one mystery, which is, why would I even do this and change the dungeon that is entered if I'm just going through Waterfall Cave, quote unquote, anyways? Well, as of now, it is understood that adding a guest party member to your team is a functionality that is actually hard-coded to only certain dungeons. So, to make Brilu my guest, I had to overwrite Bidoof's data for side path using a hex editor. That is definitely more complex than everything discussed so far, and probably would warrant its own video to explain. Let me know if there's any interest for that. I could definitely provide that type of video, but you know, again, it would put a decent amount of effort to explain all that. But just let me know if there's any interest. However, this isn't the end, because making side path the new dungeon also means that it is the new reference point for unionall.ssb. In other words, at the end of side path's end script will be played, not Waterfall Cave's end script. Luckily, this can be changed. Using the debug log, I figured out that completing side path takes you to Get Out Scenario Dungeon. Get Out Scenario Dungeon. Where is it? You gotta hit down, 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 down a bunch of times. There we go. Then, after that, the next label was label D009 clear, which is right here. Then, label D009 clear first. And then at the end of this script, you can see that there's this jump common for an event. In Vanilla Explorers of Sky, this is the event for clearing side path, but instead I redirected it to the event for clearing Waterfall Cave. I also added in dungeon mode 6 equals D mode open and request. Again, watch that Parakoopa video, but this basically makes it so the original Waterfall Cave no longer has the first time visit flag set. Since you're leaving side path now, the game does not automatically do this and you have to add this in. Out of curiosity, if you scroll up here, Waterfall Cave is most likely case 6, because afterwards you have dungeon mode 6 equals D mode open and request. So that's where it would normally occur if you're correctly leaving Waterfall Cave. It jumps to the same spot, and then you have, again, the same jump common. And with that, the modified event has been successfully implemented. I hope this video has been both in-depth enough and not too overwhelming for people out there brand new to SkyTemple, and I would love to see some large-scale creations come out of this thing. I know I'm working on one personally. Links to all the videos mentioned before are in the description, as well as a link to the SkyTemple Discord. Thanks for watching.